Well, that was something, huh?
Okay. Do you remember 4 days ago when I said that Seahawks Cardinals was a lot of fun to watch? This is why I said that. Nights like tonight.
It's gonna be okay. We're gonna enjoy this. There's a lot of stuff that we can dig into, and we were talking on Slack before we started recording, and Dave is of the opinion that Jets Dolphins was a fun game. I think there's actually a lot of fun stuff to dig into in that game, and actually there's a lot to talk about in that game. But we're gonna go in reverse chronological order here and begin with the game that just ended, which is a little bit less exciting, but I think not any less substantial in what the actual takeaways from this thing look like, especially when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, David.
That is an all-time sell. Like the way that you just described that makes it sound. I want to hear this because other than the Bengals are terrible and the Bengals are screwed and Cincinnati fans, come listen to Building the Beast so we can figure out how to build your team through the draft. Like what's the takeaway? Like, what is the takeaway from what we just witnessed?
This could get really bad in a hurry.
It already did. I think it officially did.
I'm talking about if this goes on for another 13, 14 games, I don't know how many games left in the regular season. If this goes on for another 13 games, we're going to have some hard conversations about what's going on over there.
So that's the thing. It didn't look this bad last time they were in this scenario where
Not
Jake
even
Browning
close.
they were like a
feel
500
good story.
They were a 500 football team. Like they looked like they were going to be able to stay in it. And this looks like they are one of the most inept offenses in the league. I mean, for a majority of this game, the offense was, can I just throw the ball up to T. Higgins against Riley Moss? And that worked like one time, maybe two times. And otherwise, it was just like they were hoping and praying.
It was really funny how that really was their game plan for the whole first quarter. And early on, I was like, oh, this will work. Like T had a nice gain for like 19. And I think they flagged Riley on the next series for defensive pass interference. And I was like, all right, this is a strategy. And it was done within the next like 15 minutes. And then it was just hopeless from there on out.
Tonight is like the worst case scenario on multiple different levels if you're a Bengals fan. We essentially watched down to down the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals defense when it came to what they tried to do against the Broncos offense. And now we have to watch an offense with a worse infrastructure than some of the really troubling ones we've seen from the Bengals over the last 4 or 5 years when it comes to run game, pass protection. You've got 2 rookie guards. You got Armarius Mims getting cooked by Jonathan Cooper multiple times in this game. Orlando Brown is off to the worst start of his Bengals career over the first 4 games of the season, and you don't have Joe Burrow. So it's like the worst of everything all converging at the same time for the Bengals. And the prospect of doing that for another dozen games, we've kind of danced around this a little bit. I think it was on the Hangover show last week, Derek, or maybe 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, Zach Taylor, I think, has done an underrated job with some of the offensive stuff. And even if you account for the fact that he has Joe Burrow, I think that staff has actually done a pretty decent job over the last 3 or 4 years. There is no selling point here. There's no saving grace. There's no rationalization. If it continues to look like this, they're either going to have to make a call for a quarterback in order just to salvage the optics of this thing, or we're going to get to the end of the year, and I think people are going to be asking some really tough questions about who's going to be in charge of this team moving forward.
Well, and so that's the problem. It feels like any quarterback, quote, upgrade you might make at this stage really is just for optics. Like, I don't think with the way that the offensive line is playing at this stage that they're really going to fix anything by bringing in almost any other quarterback. And then really, to me, too, the difference between 2023 and now
2023
is the defense was not killing them the way that it is right now. Like, I think that part of the reason they feel like they are pressed and we just got to throw go balls and we just got to try to get explosives is like, well, if we try to play a little bit more of a calculated game and try to keep this close, I don't think our defense is going to let us keep it close. And so that, I think, is a little bit of a different math than they were playing 2 years ago.
I also think that when you watch what they were in 2023, like that was an offensive line that was kind of on the downslide. 2022 is probably their best year as an offensive line. 2023 was the first year with Orlando Brown. It wasn't a disaster like it looks right now. And when you watch this offense, you just feel how much they need Joe Burrow's exact skill set whenever they're trying to throw the ball. The John Franklin Myers sack is a perfect example. That's not a play where John Franklin Myers wins immediately. Like that sack happens after one hitch in the pocket from Jake Browning. But with the current state of the offensive line for the Bengals, you can't take one hitch in the pocket. The ball needs to come out immediately for this thing to look like even semi-functional. And Joe Burrow is the quarterback who allows that to happen. Jake Browning is not. And the difference between those two things go from a good offense, most likely over the course of the year, to an offense that is truly unwatchable.
It's funny because, I mean, you could see this coming from a mile away. Even before Joe got hurt, I mean, I know that was very quickly into the season, but odds are this was going to be a Bengals team where everything had to go right for them to win games, and Joe and Jamar and T were going to have to do half a dozen superhuman things a weekend, and you're going 9-8, you're going 10-7, and you're losing a handful of games that you had no business losing because there were so many other problems with this team. And that is a frustrating way to live. It's nowhere near as frustrating as having no hope, really, from like the third series of the game onward. And I know these guys are professional. I was joking in the Discord that Jamar and T are fortunately paid an ungodly amount of money to put up with this, but I like, human nature is human nature. And you, like, if you're a good player on this team, if you're one of the handful of like truly good players on the Bengals, imagine knowing that you've got 13 more weeks of this and wondering what that's going to look like. And I it's hard. And in 2023, Joe went down around like Thanksgiving, which there's still a lot of season to play, but late November is nothing compared to, it's not even officially October yet. Like, they got a long way to go. And I'm not trying to say people gave up or anything 4 games into the season, but if they haven't, it's going to be tempting to, if it looks like this for a few more weeks.
I mean, it feels like we're heading in that direction. And I think there's really no solution here. Like, Russell Wilson is theoretically available. Derek, could you imagine Russell Wilson in this offense right now?
Absolutely not. That sounds like a football crime. I don't want to do that.
Okay, what about the other Giants quarterback that doesn't have a job? What about that guy?
That might be more.
I would at least watch that.
I
would want to tap into that at least every single week. But
it would have made a game like this more fun to watch.
Yes, it would make them much more watchable than they are right now. Let's flip to the other side of the ball. I think a couple different elements of this game from the Broncos offense that are worth getting into. And, obviously some of this is tinged by playing against the Bengals defense, but structurally, in terms of down to down, just efficiency with the Broncos, this is the best single game rushing performance by their running backs in terms of success rate in the Sean Payton era, which is since 2023. And I don't know what the final number was, but the offense felt much more dynamic in this game than it has for all of this season, and really for the last couple of years. This is not a team that uses a ton of motion. At one point in the fourth quarter, they had the highest motion at the snap rate, Derek, per Next Gen Stats, of the entire Sean Payton era. And so I do think that while this offense was really struggling over the first 3 weeks down to down, they did get going today. Some of that's the Bengals, but I can also see them trying to iterate and try some stuff that maybe they hadn't been over the first 3 weeks of the season.
And this was the perfect team to try out some more of your motion stuff against, because the Bengals can't communicate and they can't tackle. And so if you're moving guys all around, one, you're forcing the last touchdown the Broncos score, actually. They come out in an empty set. They have, I think it was RJ Harvey as the running back, split out to the left. They reload him back into the backfield, and the Bengals try to make this check for it, and they just get completely lost, and he's just completely free and nobody accounts for him. It's stuff like that they were able to get away with. And even then, just some of the at the snap motion where you get a guy running and stuff like that, the Bengals they're taking poor angles. This is a team that I think we knew last year they had struggled communicating and tackling, and I think we thought the idea was that bringing in a new defensive coordinator was going to fix some of that. And I think this was a game where it was clear that has not been the case yet.
Not to say that they were good, but do you guys know after the opening drive, the scripted drive that got the Bengals their only points, do you know how long the longest they were on the field for the rest of the game was?
A minute, 15 seconds.
I mean, you're lowballing it a little there.
I mean,
3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes. Their longest drive after the opening drive was 6 plays, and I think it went 30 yards. So in addition to being a bad defense, again, think about the psychology of that in the NFL, where you're getting 3 or 4 plays off at a time for an entire night. And it looked like it by the end of this game, where this is not supposed to happen in the NFL, but by the mid third quarter, this game had the feel of Ohio State going against Bowling Green, and like it's like, all right, let's get the freshmen some run, like let's see what the young guys have. Like, you're not supposed to see that in the NFL, but half a dozen times a season we get it, and it's very depressing.
It has all the makings of like a true collapse. That's how you start your way onto a collapse. It kind of reminds me a little bit of just these really terrible offenses we've seen over the last few years, where even though when the defense is good, it starts to get hard to give a shit down to down. The Jets over the last couple of years, what the Browns have had to deal with. And so now you're putting that onto a bad defense, and that's where things can get really ugly really quickly. So with the Broncos offense, I think the run game really getting going today. They've been explosive over the first 3 games, but not consistent. And so today, watching them just rip off 6, 6, 7, 8, 6, 6, that was really nice to see. Talked about, I think some of the motion stuff, Derrik did a good job of creating throws over the middle of the field for Bo Nix. I remember that the Troy Franklin inbreaker where he's coming in motion, I think that led to a few more throws in that area of the field that they were able to access. And not a perfect game by Bo Nix by any stretch. He throws the interception in the red zone. Probably could have thrown a somewhat better ball on that deep shot down the middle of the field. I believe it was to Troy Franklin, but some nice moments from him. That he had a 3rd down in the first half where he was pressured. He slides up in the pocket. He finds Courtland Sutton on the left side for a first down. And then the drive to score the touchdown before the half, he rips that whole shot down the left sideline for a huge chunk. And then the ball he rips to Courtland Sutton heading over the middle on that seam right to score the touchdown before the end of the half. I think in a season where he's had some rough moments, it was nice to at least look like he was in rhythm and playing with a lot more confidence than he has for the first 3 weeks of the year.
So actually, to the point that Dave was making about it a little bit feeling like a college game, this felt a little bit like sometimes you'll see college teams will like ask their quarterback against a team they're much better against throw like 38 times for the sake of getting a little bit of reps and confidence. I genuinely think Sean Payton was doing a little bit of that with the way that Bo Nix had played earlier, but he did play well in this game. I mean, obviously the interception was pretty boneheaded, but otherwise he made a handful of pretty good throws.
I'll keep that, right? So at a certain point, it doesn't really matter.
That to me was less like the throwing the pick. That to me is like, if you're throwing in the end zone, you throw low at the goal line or you throw high at the back line, and he did neither. And it's like we got to think a little bit better than that.
Keeping the college game theme going, like I said, it reminded me of like, you watch a college game, a young guy gets in the second half of a blowout, and you're like, ooh, yeah, he's got some pop. Let's keep this snap count trending in this direction. And that is how I felt about RJ Harvey. Like, he absolutely he did the most work in this game that he's done this season. His snap count was the highest. I think he carried the ball more. He had 14 carries tonight. That's more than double any other game that he's had so far this year. And not saying he lit the world on fire, but I was like, yes, Sean Payton, I see the vision. Let's mix this in and get this going in a game that means a little bit more.
The Broncos take care of business against the Bengals team that is potentially on the verge of collapse. So nice to see that from Denver after what had been a pretty uneven start. Let's get to the first game of the night. The Miami Dolphins end up beating the New York Jets 27-21. Dave, I'm going to let you have the floor here as somebody who was espousing the virtues of this game to us before we started recording. What about this game did you find particularly interesting or fun?
It's funny because I say it's fun and it was, but really I am furious. I am so mad about the sequence that robbed Garrett Wilson of his first touchdown. I thought so like, let's call it what it is. This game's a little bit of a slog. It's ugly. There's a lot of penalties. The Jets keep shooting themselves in the foot. Amazing quote from Breece Hall after this game.
Unbelievable.
Quoting our guy.
That is a man who has spent several seasons with the New York Jets.
Quoting our guy, Zach Rosenblatt, he says, teams shoot themselves in the foot. Well, we come back and shoot ourselves in the head. Yes, Breece Hall. Yes, you do. So, like, you have the goal line fumble. You have the Justin Fields turnover. They fumble at the beginning of the second half. It's a mess. It's not a great game. But then I look up, and Justin Fields actually has like a very fun drive. Like as a passer, playing the quarterback position, they get the ball on their own 30 on their own 37, rips a very nice dig to Garrett Wilson with like good anticipation. He's open in the zone and Fields lets it rip. It's a nice completion. Feeling good about that. Immediately, next play, really nice ball to Mason Taylor. Waits for him to clear behind Tyrell Dodson in the intermediate zone. Throws a very nice pass, leads his receiver. Now we're cooking, baby. Like what? Okay, Justin Fields, this is kind of what I saw during the Pittsburgh game. I'm getting really excited. Then he gets one-on-one coverage 18 yards out and floats a beauty to Garrett Wilson, who does his Garrett Wilson thing and gets his feet down. Everybody's like, oh, too bad that's not a catch. Oh, wait, yeah, it is. It's a catch. It's a touchdown. Garrett Wilson's the man. And it all gets waved off by freaking OPI on the most innocent shove at the top of the route that I have ever seen. It is textbook receiver play. It is 101 shit. Like if we flagged that every time it happened, there wouldn't be any go ball touchdowns in the NFL. Like I went back and watched it again just to make sure I wasn't crazy. Devontae Adams did this to the Eagles a week ago, and it was celebrated as this like amazing play because it is.
And AJ Brown did it to the Rams in the exact same game.
Every receiver does it every time they catch a go ball touchdown. And to take that away from Garrett Wilson, and I was a little happy that he did wind up getting a circus catch touchdown later, and that made me feel a little better. But then I was like, imagine how you'd feel if he had a 6-catch, 90-yard, 2-touchdown day where he's just mossing the Dolphins all night. And on top of that, by the way, if they don't wave it off, then it's 24-17 going into the fourth quarter, and we got ourselves a ball game. Like it ruined what could have been a much more entertaining finish than it was, and it really, really pissed me off. I hated it a lot. I
honestly thought that the Jets offense was mostly fine in this game.
It was
when they weren't doing the dumbest things ever. Yes, it was like actually kind of put together. It looked okay.
When you look at just what they were doing down to down, it was mostly fine. They just, as Breece Hall so eloquently put it, were shooting themselves in the foot before shooting themselves in the head. You had the fumble at the goal line on the first Braylon Allen drive, which was a gorgeous, like, talk about Service Academy Jets. Like, that's exactly what that drive felt like. He fumbles on the goal line. Then the next drive, they're actually moving the ball pretty well. They have an illegal shift. They have a false start. It gets to 2nd and 13. They get it back to 2nd and 3rd and 5. Incompletion, and then on 4th down, there's actually a really nice simulated pressure that gets home. Fields takes a sack, he fumbles. But you have 2 penalties on that drive. Then at the end of the half, have a little bit of a, not a ton of urgency getting down on that final drive. They end up kicking a field goal. And then on the first drive of the second half, down 10-3, after moving the ball pretty efficiently throughout the entire first half, they fumble immediately on the opening kickoff. The Dolphins score a touchdown, and it's 17-3, and the game feels over. But the offense didn't actually feel that bad. And I do think that this running game, when they can stay in positive game scripts, when they're not having to endure a lot of penalties, it is a very good unit. The problem is there's been a lot of penalties and been a lot of self-inflicted wounds. My biggest issue with this Jets team is the defense is a mess. Like for the first 3 quarters of this game, they're just all over the place. And the Dolphins clearly tapped into something. They used more under center play action dropbacks in this game than they had in any season since 2022, I'm pretty sure, because all they had to do was play fake and boot Tua out. And whether it was the linebackers or any of the second level defenders, no one on the Jets had any idea what zip code they were in.
Yeah, they booted like a dozen times in this game. And I don't know if that's actually the number, but it certainly felt like that.
Well, that doesn't include the pistol boots. And so that's just under center. So if you include the pistol boots, I'm sure it's at least 10 to 12 over the course of the game.
It had to be like they clearly tapped into like, okay, if we get them running one way, we're going to get guys running back the other way. And even some of them were designed really well. Like one of the early Tyreek Hill ones that they get to pop like on like a little bit of a shallow crosser. They have another receiver, I think it was the tight end actually, to that side of the field, like run up the seam and like clear out the corners so he can't drive down on the shallow route. So like they put this together really, really well. And then this Jets secondary, purely in terms of coverage, I think is not that bad. They have been the most frustrating tackling unit to me, other than maybe like the Bills, for like 3 years now. Even when they were a really, really good defense, that was not something that they did very well. And now that the rest of the unit is kind of falling apart, I think you really feel that. Like even some of the goal line runs or like, low red zone runs that like Devon Achane had, like they're just not tackling and hitting well. It's just they are a very frustrating unit to watch. Like to me, the only like firmly good part of this defense outside of Quinnen Williams, obviously, was the linebackers, and now you're missing one of them. Like it's just it's a tough unit.
Brandon Stevens had a couple nice moments at the very beginning of this game, and I like circled it, and I was gonna give y'all shit about it. And then the wheels just came off to a degree where I was like, well, that's not going to matter anymore.
I don't mind Brandon Stevens. Like I think that Brandon Stevens is. I know you mind Brandon Stevens. Brandon Stevens is a very frustrating player, but he has his moments in man coverage. The problem is that this team was easy to pick on in man coverage when they were playing so much of it early in the game. Every rub route, every design man beater was hitting, and then every single time you're trying to run guys through a zone against this Jets defense right now, especially over the middle of the field, it's probably ending in a big chunk gain for you on early downs. And the Dolphins were a very good example of that today.
Just in case it sounds like we're giving the Dolphins zero credit, which I mean, the Jets, it felt to me like the Jets gave this game away between fumbling on the goal line at the beginning like that, fumbling right out of halftime, the penalties. I mean, what was the final penalty number in this freaking game?
Of all the penalties, disgusting. By the way, Garrett Wilson not getting set on that one like late second quarter.
I know.
So, and that was a tough sequence too, because he has that where he's like trying to like kind of stay moving while he's trying to time the snap, and he ends up staying moving, and he ends up not getting set. It looks like he's dancing in place while he's trying to get set. So they get the penalty for that. On the very next play, I think it's 4th and 5. He's in the slot and he gets mashed to the ground immediately in press coverage. And the Dolphins actually run like a pretty nice like defensive end loop where they have the defensive end crash, bring the right tackle in, and then they have the linebacker, I think it was Terrell Dodson, loop over the top as Fields is flushing out, and they strip sack him. And it's just like little stuff like that. It's like they're moving the ball, and then they do that. And it's like, man, if this was just a little bit more buttoned up.
They had 13 penalties for 101 yards in the game, Dave. So not where you want to be.
No surprise. I heard all the Jets writers were saying they could hear Aaron Glenn screaming through the the media rooms have like cinder block walls down in the bowels of the stadium. Like they could hear him through the cinder block, which I'm not surprised.
That to me is the most frustrating and potentially upsetting part of this if you're a Jets fan. All you wanted this season, even if you knew you were going to be outmanned from a talent perspective, was, are we coming correct to these games? Do we feel like we're well coached? Do we feel like we have the right energy? Do we feel like we have the right people in place? Those are the boxes you want to check in year one of a new regime. And so for them to look as out of sorts as they do on defense, and then with some of the operational things offensively, that's the part of this that I think could be really frustrating. Like you're trying to turn over a new leaf. And even if you're not ready to compete from a roster perspective, you want to at least make sure you're doing the right things under a new group and under new leadership. And right now that just does not feel like it is the case for the New York Jets.
Yeah. And like, I'll say to their credit, outside of the Bills game, they've at least like been in a lot of these games and given themselves chances to stay in it. If again, they don't shoot themselves in the foot and do stupid stuff all the time.
What do we think about the Dolphins moving forward this year? Because I do think that the offense is probably going to be at least watchable and entertaining as long as Mike McDaniel is there and the quarterback is healthy. And that's kind of where we are right now, right? No Tyreek Hill now for the rest of the season now with a dislocated knee, which that's obviously going to take away a decent amount of explosiveness from your offense, but still have Jalen Waddle. I still think that they're going to have some interesting ideas they're trotting out every week. The offensive line injuries are going to hinder them. Like the offense to me was never going to be the concern with this team. I feel like the offense was always going to be at least competent. And because it has been while McDaniel has been there, I just think that the offense not being like a super high-powered unit paired with this defense, even if the Jets games are going to be watchable in the ways that they've been over the Dolphins games are going to be watchable the ways they've been over the last couple of weeks, they're still going to lose a lot of football games because they're going to struggle to stop anybody.
Yeah, they're going to be like a watchable 6-11. That's kind of how I feel about them right now.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how they adapt. I mean, obviously it sucks to lose Tyreek, and granted, it's against a Jets team that can't figure itself out on the back end, but Tyreek was on pace for the best game of his season, probably. Like he had 60 yards pretty early in this game. I think his best, he had 101 against New England. I think he could have topped that. Regardless, the Dolphins have been famous for the last 3 years of like Tyreek and Waddle get 75% of the target share. Like this is not a team that divvies up the looks. So losing Tyreek kind of forces you to change that. Like Darren Waller didn't get a ton of targets in this game, but he made the most of them. The touchdown at the beginning, for as bad as the for as bad as the Jets defense might be, they played that great. Like Sauce was there. Brandon Stevens came over off the backside. Like it was just a phenomenal throw and a better catch. Like that was awesome. I'm curious to see if Darren Waller can keep that going. And yeah, outside of Waddle, who is that guy? Because again, this has been a team that they don't divvy it up. The two main receivers get all the looks for the Dolphins. So is it Waller? Do you get Nick Westbrook-Akine more involved? Do you get the running backs more involved than they already are? Like, are we going to see twice as many Malik Washington
I was going to say it's Malik Washington.
I don't know about that, man.
However you want to do it, this is going to look drastically different than what the Mike McDaniel Dolphins have been, just because Tyreek's not there. So that is interesting enough for me to want to check in and see what it looks like.
When Tyreek was banged up last year, it was a lot more Devon Achane in the passing game. And we've already seen some sprinkles of that at the beginning of this season, at least, right? Like, I mean, think about their game plan against the Bills. And that's not the most fun brand of football that the Dolphins can play, but I think it is something they're comfortable tapping into if they have to. And without Tyreek Hill, I think there's a good chance that they have to. All right. That is all we've got for these two just stellar Monday Night Football games after a very long week 4. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. We've got a full slate of shows coming your way over the next few days over on the Athletic Football Show podcast feed. Monday Hangover coming out on Tuesday with me and Derrik. Encourage you guys to go check that out. Building the Beast with Dane and Dave on Wednesday. And then we'll be back with our buddy Ollie Connolly from Meat Optional is going to come out on Thursday. We're going to talk about some new offensive systems, right? Teams that are kind of exploring new ideas on offense, the Patriots, the Bears, the Seahawks, what that has looked like over the first 4 weeks. And then we'll be back with our week 5 preview on Friday. If you're watching this on YouTube, which this is the only place you can watch it, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're doing a lot more new stuff on the YouTube channel this year. So highly encourage you guys to subscribe. If you have not, we would sincerely appreciate it. Please comment below any thoughts that you have about the show. For now, that's all we got. Sincerely appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you very soon.